Desire, a word so common and yet so misunderstood. We speak of desires as if they were simple, things we want, goals we pursue. But for Freud, desire was not a conscious wish. It was the force that moves the entire psychic life, the energy that flows beneath thought, morality, and action. To speak of desire is to speak of what is missing, because we only desire what we do not have. Desire begins with absence. It is born not from abundance, but from lack. A newborn cries, not because it knows what it wants, but because it feels something missing: warmth, presence, nourishment, touch. In that moment, the entire human story begins. The story of seeking what was once given without asking and will never again be found in the same way. From that first loss, the separation from the mother, the entry into language, desire emerges as the invisible thread of our existence. It is what makes us speak, love, create, and suffer. Freud discovered that desire does not disappear when it is denied. It hides, it disguises itself, it finds new paths. Civilization demands that we repress our impulses, our aggression, our sexuality, our forbidden fantasies. Repression, Verdrängung, is necessary. It allows us to live together, to build families, to love without destroying. But repression also has a cost. What we push away from consciousness continues to live within us. And because it cannot express itself directly, it returns, transformed, distorted, disguised. This return is what Freud called the symptom. The symptom is not an enemy to be eliminated. It is a compromise. It is the way the unconscious finds to express a desire that consciousness refuses to hear. When a person suffers from anxiety, obsession, or bodily pain without medical cause, Freud did not see a malfunction. He saw meaning. The symptom is a piece of truth that has lost its language. It is the repressed returning in disguise. Think of a man who cannot stop washing his hands. Consciously, he says he fears contamination, but perhaps what he truly fears is moral impurity, a forbidden thought, a feeling of guilt buried long ago. The washing becomes symbolic purification. The symptom tells the truth in the form of an act. Every symptom, Freud said, is a form of satisfaction. Not pleasant, but real. It is the fulfillment of a desire that has been denied access to consciousness. That is why symptoms are resistant to change, because they give pleasure even when they cause pain. Repression is the mechanism that creates the unconscious. It is not an event of the past, but a process that continues every day. We repress because we must, because not everything we feel can be said or lived. The child desires the parent. The human being desires beyond social limits. The body desires beyond reason. Repression keeps desire within bounds, but the price is neurosis. Freud compared the psyche to a boiling pot. The lid, repression, prevents the contents from spilling out, but the steam finds small cracks, small exits, dreams, slips, symptoms. These are the safety valves of the unconscious. If repression is too strong, the pot may explode in crisis. If it is too weak, chaos takes over. The work of psychoanalysis is not to destroy repression, but to understand it, to make it conscious, to give it form and meaning. Desire itself is paradoxical. We think we want satisfaction, but what we truly want is to keep desiring. When desire is fulfilled, it vanishes. It moves to something else. It is never complete, never final. That is why Freud said that human beings are driven not by needs, but by desire, by what cannot be entirely satisfied. Lacan later would call this the objet petita, the unattainable object that gives shape to our longing. We desire not to possess, but to continue desiring. Desire is our proof of life. And yet, repression constantly tries to silence it, to make us believe that we can be whole, complete, without lack. Society offers us substitutes: success, money, love, recognition. But beneath them all, the original lack remains, the absence that defines us. To live with desire is to live with tension. We want, we fear, we repress, we repeat. This repetition is not accidental. Freud called it the repetition compulsion, the tendency to relive the same patterns, to return to the same emotional wounds. Why do we fall for the same kind of person? Why do we sabotage what we most desire? Because the unconscious seeks mastery over what once hurt us. It repeats the scene, hoping to rewrite it. But repetition is also the symptom's disguise. We repeat because we have not yet spoken. What cannot be symbolized returns in action. In analysis, when the patient begins to speak freely, the repetition begins to break. The repressed starts to find words. The symptom no longer needs to act. It can now be said. Speech replaces compulsion. Freud's genius was to see that the symptom is not an error to be corrected, but a message to be interpreted. The hysterical paralysis, the obsessive ritual, the anxiety without cause, all are forms of truth expressed through distortion. The symptom is the return of the repressed, the disguised fulfillment of a forbidden wish. This is why Freud said that the symptom is meaningful. It speaks the language of the unconscious, even when we do not understand it. To cure, therefore, is not to erase the symptom, but to translate it, to make the unconscious conscious. But this translation is not simple. The unconscious resists exposure. It hides behind defense mechanisms, denial, projection, rationalization. A person may deny what they feel, attribute it to others, or invent logical explanations for what is emotional. These defenses protect the ego from anxiety, but they also imprison it. Analysis is the slow work of dismantling these defenses, not by force, but by listening. The analyst does not attack resistance. He listens to it. Every silence, every digression, every contradiction is a clue. Through listening, the repressed begins to speak, sometimes timidly, sometimes in pain, sometimes in laughter. And when it does, something shifts. The symptom loses its necessity. Repression, Freud taught, is never total. There is always a return. The unconscious insists on being heard. It is patient, creative, and relentless. It speaks through the body, through relationships, through art, through failure. It repeats until it finds someone willing to listen, and that someone, in analysis, is the subject himself. The analyst is not the one who reveals the truth. He is the one who helps the subject hear it. To hear oneself is the beginning of freedom. Let us reflect on what desire truly seeks. It does not seek the object, the person, the thing, the success. It seeks recognition. It seeks the other, someone who will receive its call. When a child cries, it is not only for milk, it is for the gaze of the mother, for the confirmation that he exists. That gaze is the first mirror of desire. As adults, we continue to seek that gaze. In love, in work, in creation, we desire to be desired. But when the other's gaze is lost or absent, desire turns inward. It becomes guilt, anxiety, or symptom. The symptom is the substitute for the missing gaze. It is the body's way of saying, see me, hear me, acknowledge my truth. In this sense, the symptom is not only personal, it is relational. It always speaks to someone, even if that someone is imaginary. A person who cannot stop apologizing may be addressing not the listener in front of them, but a figure from the past. A person who fears being abandoned may be reliving an old loss. The symptom is a conversation across time, a dialogue between who we were and who we have become. Psychoanalysis invites us to listen to that dialogue, not to silence it. Freud's view of desire was revolutionary because it dismantled the moral idea of purity. He showed that human desire is complex, ambivalent, and contradictory. We can love and hate the same person. We can wish for freedom and fear it at once. Desire is not clean. It is the place where opposites meet. That is why the symptom is never simple. It carries both satisfaction and suffering, both truth and disguise. To interpret it is to accept contradiction, to see that within us, good and evil, love and guilt coexist. The unconscious does not choose sides. It reveals the tension that defines us. And yet through this tension, psychoanalysis offers hope. Because when the repressed is spoken, when desire finds its voice, suffering transforms. The symptom, once decoded, loses its function. The energy that sustained it becomes available for creation, love, and freedom. Freud described this transformation as moving from neurosis to mourning, from acting out to symbolizing. When we can speak our loss, we no longer need to repeat it. To speak is to free. The process is not linear. Resistance returns, defenses reappear, new symptoms emerge. But each time, the subject learns more about himself, about the intricate dance between desire and repression. In the end, the goal of analysis is not to eliminate repression. That would be impossible, but to make it conscious. To live knowing that our freedom is not absolute, but dialogical, that our choices are shaped by what lies within. When we can recognize our unconscious motives, we no longer serve them blindly. We begin to live with them, not against them. Desire, in Freud's sense, is not just sexual. It is the life force itself, the libido, the energy that moves everything alive. When repressed, it becomes symptom. When expressed, it becomes art, thought, love. Sublimation, the transformation of raw desire into creation, is the highest outcome of repression. It is when the forbidden energy finds a symbolic outlet. The artist, the thinker, the lover, all are forms of sublimation. This is the paradox of human existence. The same energy that causes neurosis also creates civilization. Without repression, there would be no art, no ethics, no language. But without desire, there would be no life. We are condemned to this tension and blessed by it. Freud once wrote, "Man must repress to live in society, but he must express to live as a man." The work of psychoanalysis is to help us find that balance, to transform repression into expression, guilt into responsibility, symptom into meaning. In that transformation, suffering becomes speech, and in speech, we recover our humanity. As we near the end of this journey, remember that your symptoms are not enemies. They are signs, letters written by the unconscious in the alphabet of pain. To listen to them is to honor your own truth. Do not rush to silence them. Ask what they want to say. Because behind every symptom, there is a desire that once was forbidden, but still lives. And when that desire is finally recognized, something extraordinary happens. The symptom dissolves, not by force, but by understanding. What was once illness becomes meaning. What was once silence becomes speech. To know oneself, Freud said, is not to eliminate the unconscious, but to live with it. To recognize that our conflicts, our repetitions, our desires are the very fabric of our being. To be human is to desire. To desire is to lack. And to lack is to live. So, as you listen to your own mind, remember, the unconscious never stops speaking. It only waits for your attention. And perhaps in listening to it, you will find that your symptom was never an obstacle, but a guide leading you back to yourself. Let's continue our exploration.